And with that familiar intro, welcome once again to another episode of Candid Conversations about network marketing. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whenever you are in the world. Hi, my name is BK, and as usual, my co-host, Dr. Wayne.
How are we going, BK? Hi, everyone.
So you see, I remember that he's here. He's here. Yeah. So this is another episode, and if you have caught us last week, we have been talking about something that we think will benefit you from a weekly basis. Basically, how to lead a more stress-free life. I think who likes more stress in their lives? I'm guessing nobody, right? But so we want to talk about how to lead a less stressful life through routines. So last week, we were only able to cover an overview because it is truly a lot of things to cover. But today, I think Dr. Wayne is going to go through in much greater detail each and every day, the routines that we can do that can help us do that, right? And if you want to catch last week's episode as well as the other episodes that we have, please do check us out at networkmarketerpodcast.com, at networkmarketerpodcast.com, because that's where we actually archive all the previous episodes. And of course, we also have show notes, right, which Dr. Hui has kindly been doing for us. So if you just hit us up at that at networkmarketerpodcast.com, you can actually get the show notes as well, right? So Doc, you're going to cover 3 days at least today, I think?
Yes. Yep, that'll be nice. Yeah, if we can cover the 3 days, that'll be great. So Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and I remember reading probably about 25 years ago something that Abraham Lincoln used to do. And it was following the same concepts as the spiritual laws that we're going to go through now, the 7 spiritual laws of success, as in the book by Deepak Chopra. And it's a great book, and I remember reading this a number of decades ago, and I used to, when on stage, I used to talk about this to practitioners, whether they be medical doctors or whether they be naturopaths, chiropractors, physios, oncologists, specialists, whoever used to be in the room when I used to do this. And I used to talk about these spiritual laws back then. But getting back to Abraham Lincoln, I think he must have read this book as well. But of course, it wasn't in print back then, because he used to do something similar, BK. He used to actually, he used to put down the different days. And what he used to do then was he used to aspire to one particular emotion or positive attribute that he wanted to acquire. And what he used to do then was, at the end of the day, rate himself on that positive attribute. So, for example, one of those days may have been motivation, for example. And then he would rate his day at the end of the day in terms of how he went for motivation, whether it was positive or negative. And then this is me now paraphrasing it. I suppose what he'd do then is, out of 10 being absolutely fantastic, he would then give himself a rating. And if he rated say 4 out of 10, the next time he'd do that the next time he'd do that during the week, he will then try to aspire to become a 5, and then try to aspire to become a 6, to then become a better person. And that's the major reason why we're putting all this together, isn't it, BK? So that we as network marketers can lift this wonderful industry. And we've said it many times before that we believe that the network marketing industry is one of the cleanest industries you can be a member of, especially when you get the ethos of the company, when you get your company right, you got the ethos of the company, and you've got the actual product, and you feel a really good fit in there. So that's the major reason we're doing this, is to help each network marketer, each person. Even if you're not a network marketer, you might have found us and you're really, really intrigued with how to become a better person, and kudos to you. That's fantastic. So this is not for network marketers per se. This is for anyone in small business. This is for anyone who wants to be that person that they know is deep down within them.
I think sometimes maybe we need to reconsider the title of the podcast and change it to Peak Performance for Everyone.
Yes, true. How true that is.
Because in essence, I mean, regardless of what industry you're in, in a sense, what we're trying to put forth here is basically a set of principles and guidelines, and some of them are, of course, drawn from ancient wisdom that is now verified by modern science, which is very interesting, right? A set of principles that can actually propel us towards peak performance, right? I mean, and Dr. Wayne is an expert in peak performance coaching because he coaches not just network marketers, he also coaches sports people, athletes in various fields, and also practitioners in the health science space. So, in essence, some of the things that we're talking about, I mean, of course, we are talking about this as a candid conversations about network marketing. We also talk about, why most network marketers fail and why you do not have to, right? We are trying to prevent that from happening. But in essence, as long as you're involved in any form of performance, whether is it in the sports arena or in the business arena or even in a personal arena where you are trying to be a better human being, a better parent, a better student, and all that. I think all the things that we're talking about is relevant, right? Is highly relevant and based on very interesting spiritual principles. And of course, today, because we're going to cover some of the daily routines, right? Some of the daily routines. And I think that's amazing.
Yeah, it truly is. And so let's get started. The 7 Spiritual Laws of Success, written by Deepak Chopra. And if you want to look at the show notes as we're going through this, fantastic. And you'll actually see the book. So if you do want to go and buy it, I highly recommend you do it. So we're going to paraphrase it. So we're going to start with Sunday. So Sunday is the law of pure potential. Remember, what we're talking about here is your pure potential as well. So take time to be silent, to just be. Meditate for 30 minutes twice a day, silently witnessing the intelligence within every living being, and practice non-judgment. So the key word here is practicing non-judgment. And probably just to align our thoughts to what that means. So if I get you to visualize, or if you're able to look outside and look at a nice greenery, nice lot of trees, etc. Or even if you haven't got that ability right now, you might be listening and it might be nighttime, for example. Just visualize some sort of rainforest, or even visualize water. I'm a water person, so I'd be visualizing water, for example, and maybe dolphins and just a lot of different types of sea creatures basically enjoying themselves. And when you do that, there is no judgment. It's purely non-judgment. However, if we put, say now we're sitting on a seat bench and we're watching people go past, typically what we'll do is we'll judge, maybe not every one of the people walking past, but we'll have a judgment thought, maybe about colour, maybe about shoes, maybe about hairstyle, etc. Yet we seemingly don't do that to our environment, which is really interesting. So whenever we are judging, what I'd like for you to do is just acknowledge that you're judging. And this is how we can actually meditate. And remembering Sunday is about the law of pure potential by meditation. And meditation doesn't necessarily mean that you have to sit still, legs crossed and sitting upright and being silent. Meditation, you can also walk meditatively. You can drive meditatively. And what I mean by this is that, say, for example, you're walking, or you might be sitting on that chair, you might actually then find that you're judging. Now, if you find yourself doing something that you don't like, and you acknowledge that has happened. So say now you're judging someone who has got a red dress, and for some reason you don't like red dresses. Well, what happens now is if you're able to acknowledge that and then bring it back and go, wow, I've just saw myself or felt myself judging, what you're actually doing is you're taking the negative potential of that judgment away from your subconscious. So say, for example, let's try and put this into numbers. So say, for example, when you look at red dresses for whatever reason, and we've gone through this in other podcasts with regards to broccoli, believe it or not. Once again, if you want to listen to those podcasts, please go back and listen to them. But in essence, some people have really negative emotions about X. And this particular one I'm going to draw attention to is about red dresses. So if, for example, you have a red dress that has a feeling of awkwardness or a feeling of yuckiness, we use a really scientific word, yuckiness, and that out of 10, and 10 is really yucky, and if you've got an 8 or a 9 feeling about that, and say now you're sitting on this bench and you've noticed red dress, you've noticed the judgment, and you've noticed it and you've witnessed it. This is what we mean by silent witnessing. And if we're able to witness it and go and bring it back to the now, and then go, wow, isn't it interesting that I'm doing that? And then try and then think of a positive emotional feeling about that red dress, then what can happen is that you've now transmuted that negative feeling from, say, a 9 out of 10 down to an 8 out of 10. Then the next time you do it and you feel it, bring it back to the now, and then you actually release it. Now you might bring it down to a 7 out of 10. And if you keep on doing this, and this is what Sunday is all about, and if you keep on doing this, then what happens then is you can now have a polarity or a negative yucky feeling about red dresses now brought down, rather than a 9 out of 10, down to a 1 out of 10. And of course, what we're talking about there is an example of a walking meditation. So anything to chime in there to start with, BK?
I think interestingly, when in my previous non-involvement in meditation, because that was something that I've never tried before, it always had this image of people sitting cross-legged and maybe eyes closed and deep and in this very transient pose and posture, right? But due to the recent interaction and learning from Dr. Wayne, I've come to understand that in essence, meditation is kind of, in a sense, being aware, right? A sense of awareness, a sense of not allowing our mind. And it's interesting because our mind wanders to all tangential directions all the time. You know, if you're not aware, or if you are not sensitive to what you're thinking about, you would be surprised when you start to focus on what you actually, your mind is dwelling on every single moment. It actually would surprise you. And so, in essence, what I've come to realize lately is that meditation is simply making ourselves into the state of being aware of where our mind is and what we are thinking about. And what Dr. Wayne was saying just now, I mean, when you are aware that you are making a judgmental thought about something, for example, and then you are able to be aware of that, it kind of takes away the power that it has on your subconscious. And that's one easy way to do it. Of course, I mean, I'm very sure meditation has a lot more levels that we can do, but this is one thing we can start with, right? Being aware of where our thoughts are every single moment of the day, right, Dr. Wayne?
Yes. And then if we can take it further, then if we can do 30 minutes of meditation, especially on a Sunday, typically I'll try and do an hour and 15, an hour and 20 minutes of meditation every day, to then do this at a higher level. Now, when you start out, you might only be able to do 5 or 10 minutes. And some people actually say 5 or 10 minutes is difficult. My mind wanders. And yes, it will wander because you're not used to it. Your mind is a muscle. So it'll be kind of like if I said to you right now that maybe you've never really exercised much. And yes, you might do a little bit of walking or whatever, but I'm going to now put you on a really deep level of physical exercise where you're going to now physically exercise for an hour and 20 minutes, an hour and a half, or even an hour, and not expect to be sore or not expect to actually get through it. You mightn't even get through it. But if I said to you, I want you to start exercising and you've never really done much, 10 minutes a day. I want you to do that for a week, maybe 2 weeks. And after 2 weeks, I want you to go to 15 minutes and then go to 30 minutes and then go to 45 minutes. And that may be all that we want to do is 45 minutes. But if you try to put all that energy into doing it for the first time, you will be knocked over very, very quickly. And you'll probably go, oh, this physical exercise is no good. It hurts. It's no good at all. This is terrible stuff, and I'm not going to do it anymore. And we've got to think of the mind in exactly the same way. Don't expect to do an hour. Don't expect to do even 30 minutes. All I'm asking initially is to maybe just do 5 or 10 minutes and just allow yourself to just sit in your own thoughts initially, and allowing at times for you to do exactly what we said in the walking meditation. Notice the negative and notice the positive. And we said this many, many times before, but just to reiterate it for those people who may have only be on the podcast for the first time. Science suggests that there's about 70,000 thoughts a day, and unfortunately 80% of them are pessimistic and 90% of them are typically of the past. Now, therefore, when you catch your thoughts, when you're initially doing this, you'll find a lot of them are negative thoughts. And that's okay once we understand the process. And what we do is we allow ourselves to catch the thoughts, and this is what we mean by silent witnessing. Then once you catch the thought, then you bring it back to the now, and you take the energy away from it, and what you do there, you diminish it, and you diminish it, and you diminish it. And every time you do this, what will happen is that you'll find that the 70,000 thoughts that are typically pessimistic or negative can actually change around, 80% of them, they can actually change around to 80% being happy and being motivated, being just really, really incredibly positive thoughts. But it doesn't happen just because you meditated once. We've got to do this on a regular basis, whether we meditate when walking or whether we meditate when sitting, or whether we actually then put a specific time aside to allow us to meditate in a more direct way to become the silent witnessing, practicing non-judgment. And this is how we get to our pure potential. This is how we can achieve our dreams. And we've talked about it before. This is where we can collapse time, whereby once upon a time it may have taken 10 years to achieve something. You can do it in a year. So this is this law of pure potential we can practice on a Sunday. But what I'd like to suggest is that you do that, yes, every Sunday to start with. But after you get used to doing it, start bringing into your daily routine a lot more often.
Wonderful. And then we go to Monday, right?
Monday, yes. So Monday is the law of giving. So the law of giving brings whomever you encounter a gift, a compliment, or a flower. Be grateful and gratefully receive gifts as well. Keep wealth circulating by giving and receiving care, affection, appreciation, and love. So this is also where we may have heard of the law of tithing. We may have heard of what's the 10% giving, keeping 10%.
Just tithing, yes.
Yeah, tithing. No, there's a little book written about it. I'll think of it shortly. So yeah, tithing in terms of giving, and it doesn't, I know when I first read this some 30 plus years ago, I didn't have much money. So what I literally then took my awareness to is how can I give something once a week that is in a gift, or even if it is in an appreciation or saying thank you, or affection or appreciation, and even showing love to those people who are around you, especially family and loved ones as well. So I nearly had the book, BK. I nearly had it.
The Richest Man in Babylon?
That's the one. Thank you. The Richest Man in Babylon basically is where this, I believe, all came from, the law of tithing. In terms of, there's two aspects there. the richest man in Babylon basically suggests we put 10% away of our wealth, and therefore we'll end up being the richest man in your area, or the richest man in Babylon, as the book suggests. And of that 10%, then you look at 10% putting it into some sort of tithing, some sort of way that you can then give. And what happens when you're able to do both, that is put 10% away of your salary or of your wages, and you give them 10% of that portion of that, riches basically then come to you. That's in the financial sense. But we also then need to then look at how can we give, or how can we look at the law of giving by giving it from the heart? What can we do for those network marketers who are achieving, the network marketers who are not achieving? How can we help them to give them a leg up, to help them to get to another level? What can we do to maybe write an inspiring email to your network marketers who have put their hand up to be the business builders? What can we do then to even put together a not a company-run promotion? What can you do to actually within your group of your downline to then actually create a promotion that you're now giving because you've are now at a level where you're actually able to do this? So this law of giving, BK, really can be influential for network marketers, that's for sure. We can just learn so much from Monday, but of course we want to do it more often as well.
I think interestingly, when you start to practice this principle that in order to receive, you must give, I understand it by the fact that you are activating a belief in abundance. Because what happens is when you operate from an area of scarcity, right? You tend to hoard things. You tend to hold on to things. You tend to think that I better hold on to what I have because I might not be able to get more of it. But if you operate from a realm of abundance, and then you understand that, hey, if I give out to charity or to someone that's deserving this 10%, you're operating from a principle where you understand that there is actually a lot of abundance out there.
Yeah.
And even if you give out that 10%, it doesn't mean that you're losing something. In fact, you're actually paying it forward in a sense because it comes back to us many fold, right? So I guess interestingly, there's another trainer in network marketing that kind of starts. He started a movement called Wealth Wednesday, because it's just a alliteration, right? Because Wednesday and wealth, so they put it together. You can do it on Monday. You can call it Manna Monday or whatever. It's quite similar in concept if you want to play around with words. But
Yeah.
I guess the concept is when you start to practice this, and it doesn't have to be massive, major amounts. You can start with a compliment. You can start with flowers. You can start with a thank you note. You can start with even, like, for example, sometimes what I do is when I go downstairs to my lobby in the apartment I'm staying, I kind of appreciate the security guards in the lobby, right? Telling them that, hey, thank you for doing a good job, and it helps. It makes their day, right? So we can start with simple things like that, and then maybe moving on to finding a charitable cause that you are passionate about and start giving, and you start to operate in the realm of abundance, which then opens up so many other doors for you, right?
Yes. And another word we could probably put in here, BK, is gratitude, because gratitude does bring into play this playing it forward energy. Gratitude, you're already thinking, or when you say gratitude or thank you in gratitude, it's something that is forward pacing. It's something that is taking us and moving us forward. So gratitude may be another word we could use in Monday as well. But it's just doing those little things, and just think of what you can do as a network marketer to encourage your team if you have a team and built a team, or if you're just starting out, what can you do as as this Deepak Chopra says on Monday. Maybe it's a compliment, as BK said, to the security guard or to anyone. Maybe it's a gift, maybe it's a flower. And be grateful, and be grateful as often as you can, and allow Monday to flourish. And what a beautiful way to put it. Like, Sunday is the day that we silent witness, we practice non-judgment, and when we do that, we then become a better human being to allow ourselves then to give from the heart. Not give because you have to, but give because you want to, which is really important as well. So let's move on to now Tuesday, the law of karma. So every action generates a force of energy that returns to us in like kind. Choosing actions that brings happiness and success to others ensures the flow of happiness and success to you. So I'm sure a lot of you have heard of the law of karma, or as it says there, in terms of it's a force of energy that returns to us in like mind. And, and some of us may have even heard of the law of karma being in the negative, in terms of if you do negative things, the negative things will keep on perpetuating forward. But what we'd like to do is think of the law of karma as a positive, in that try and bring success and happiness to others, so that that flow of happiness and success then comes to you as well. And remembering, if you're doing this from an egotistical point of view, you'll get the negative connotations of karma. However, if you do it from the heart, and if you do it from a way of unconditionally love, or if you do it from a space of just being in the now, then those positiveness of law of karma will then come towards you. So anything there, BK?
Yeah, I mean, the human beings, we tend to gravitate towards the negative side of things. So when we talk about karma, it's kind of, there is a slight negative connotation, because if you do something bad happens to you back very quickly, right? The world kind of turns it around and returns it back to you. But I guess the interesting part of all things is that if it can happen in this way, in a bad way, right? It also means it can happen in the positive way, right? Yes. Kind of like, we kind of also like to talk about epigenetics, and we talk about the new science, where we kind of say things like, recent new science talks about the fact that we can influence our genes by our thoughts and by our daily habits and routines and the things we do, right? But it also means we can influence it in the negative way, right? So it's a two sides to the same coin, right? And we kind of touched about this when we talked about the law of polarity as well, right? So, interestingly, I kind of read somewhere that when you are thinking about another person in a positive way, and you're wishing for something good for them, if they receive it, they will receive it. If they don't receive it, they will actually, it will be sent back to you in a sense, right? And of course, the converse is true, because when you think of somebody in a negative way, right, and if they don't receive it and they reject it, then it bounces back to you, right? So it's always good. It's a good idea to practice thinking about people in a better light. And I think it's also more cheerful, right? I try to think of the world as being half full rather than half empty, and I find that helps me approach things much better, right? I mean, the honest truth is that, like, in today's world, I think Dr. Wei might agree with me on this as well. A lot of the things you encounter, whether is it from social media or from the news, is always very negative, and it's very easy to assume the worst of a person. But many times actually we don't really know what is going on in someone's life, right? And maybe it was just that one single moment where that person may not be having the best of days, and all of us have that, right? I mean, some days we are not having the best of days, and we shouldn't judge that person based on that. We should just wish that person well, and maybe that will change his day altogether, right? And that also helps you, because it kind of what goes around comes around in a sense, right? That's the usual saying. And sometimes you also hear things like we have friends or team members who always complains that bad things keep happening to them. Then you always wonder, why is that the case? Why is it always only happening to you and the rest of us seems to be okay, right? So usually the problem might rest with us, right? We may need to reassess the way we look at the world, the way we are, the kind of thoughts and intentions we are putting out to the world, right? And maybe when we do that, like what Dr. Wayne is saying on Tuesday, the law of karma, we can turn things around.
Yeah. Yes. And it goes back to, I think, as well, BK, if we can truly understand the statement from science that 70,000 of our thoughts, unfortunately, typically 80% are negative and 90% of the past. So taking that theme, so if our thoughts are negative when we look at the law of karma, and 90% is about the past, all we do then is we keep basically building our future based on our past negativity. So this is why things keep on occurring to them in the same light all the time. And there's a book by David Hawkins, I think it's called Power versus Force. And what we're trying to do here is, if we can change each person's thoughts from a subconscious level, and as said, just using the law of judgment when we started on Sunday, and if you can become just 1/10 less non-judgmental, what happens then is universally, because of the law of giving and the law of karma, as BK kind of touched on there before, we can influence 150,000 other people underneath us, including in your team, who may have judgmental thoughts, and we can change that by a minute amount as well. So this is why BK and I get so excited about the work we're doing and the work we're presenting here, because if we can change just one person's thoughts from listening to this podcast, just one person's thoughts by 1 degree, we know that we're actually helping hundreds and hundreds of thousands of other people as well. And I think it's beautiful the way the 7 spiritual laws of success have been put together by Deepak Chopra, and remembering this is something that's probably thousands of years old anyway. The way that it builds is that the law of pure potential is our day of basically meditating, of finding self, of reconnecting with our true oneness, of our true intuitiveness. Then what we do then is we find that, and we find this happiness. And then Monday, what we do then is we move out into the world, and we might give a flower, and we might give a compliment, and we might just do something from the heart that can actually help someone that may be having a difficult day. And then if we can understand the law of karma and then look at it from a positive aspect, and then what we do then is because of Monday in our giving, then what happens then is we receive the positiveness on that. And then if we keep recycling these thoughts and allowing us to become a better person, we then actually influence hundreds of thousands of other people. So I think that's probably about all the time we have today, BK, and we'll definitely be going through Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday during our next podcast, our next video, wherever that's now being shown. So I think it's just the beautiful way Sunday, Monday and Tuesday lead into each other, and you'll find exactly the same when we go through Wednesday, Thursday, Friday and Saturday. So be tuned for our next podcast next week.
Yeah, and if you want to catch last week's episodes and all the previous episodes where we actually do touch a lot on other aspects about how we can succeed in our network marketing business, then do check us out at networkmarketerpodcast.com. Again, you can also sign up for the show notes if you want the show notes, right? So once again, previous episodes are all archived at networkmarketerpodcast.com. That's where you can find all previous episodes. In fact, this is already season 3, right?
Yes.
Now, interestingly, you will also find that we have been growing over the past 3 seasons, right? So please do check us out. Now, of course, if you want to dive right in straight away to the spiritual laws, then we also have a program on 5 That's the numerical number 5. If you can see the screen now, it's 5hiddenreasons.com, where we actually kind of have a fully fleshed out program where we talk about why most network marketers fail because they don't understand the spiritual laws. And when you do understand the spiritual laws and you operate within them, you actually can avoid being one of the statistics that fail, right? So do check us out at 5. That's the numerical number 5hiddenreasons.com. So once again, thank you, Dr. Wayne, for a very, very interesting 3 days of the week. We have another 4 to go. So catch us next week. We'll see you next week. Bye.
Thanks, PK. Thanks, everyone.